Rob, what is our second main topic today?
John, it comes to us from Ready Teddy Seti. It appears previous reports have been greatly exaggerated. Dwayne Johnson posted on his Twitter page that Black Adam is actually in the black and compares it to Captain America 1. I'm also seeing reports of a Hawkman spinoff as a result. What are your thoughts on this?
All right, thanks a lot for sending that out, Ready Teddy. Okay. Yeah, so this thing started going around yesterday. Now, look, Black Adam has not made $400 million at the box office, which is a little inconceivable. I mean, I don't think it was going to be $1 billion film, considering that a lot of people never even heard of the character Black Adam, and that the marketing campaign was, quite frankly, a disaster. It was an awful marketing campaign. If it wasn't for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, I think this movie would have made $300 million or less. I just think Dwayne Johnson's presence and his super active social media presence and constantly trying to plug this movie is what got it to as high as it was. Now, a report came out a couple of days ago that ran into most of the major trades that Black Adam needed $600 million to break even, which I told you, no, it does not. I showed you guys the math that it actually needs somewhere between $400 and $450 million to break even. So I don't know where this fairy tale number of 600 million came from. Still, it was clearly not going to get to that. It still had to account for the marketing and the P&A costs and all that kind of stuff. Plus, it had to account for the cut that the theaters keep and all that kind of stuff. And you had outlets like Variety saying that the film was going to lose about $100 million. Well, then Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Deadline, with who they claim had connections to the studio, are saying that the movie not only broke even, but the movie already made up to $72 million in profit. And I sat down and I looked at the numbers and their breakdown. There were a few glaring omissions. And look, Hollywood has often been accused of having some very creative accounting. I think there's some creative accounting going on there, but I still feel like the movie was getting close to breaking even. Anyway, this comes to us from Variety. Variety wrote this: Black Adam will stall out with less than $400 million globally. Sources at Warner Brothers dispute those numbers, saying the movie will break even at $400 million. In any case, Black Adam isn't the financial winner that DC had hoped when the movie was greenlit in 2019. Theatrical may be only one component of profitability. There's also TV and pay one deals, but box office returns dictate those downstream terms. Even with premium video on demand sales, which could bring in an additional 25 to 35 million, Black Adam isn't looking like it will get out of the red by the time it lands on HBO Max. So you've got a little bit of a he said, she said thing going on. And look, I fall in the middle. I have never believed that this movie is losing over $100 million. Again, when on this show, we went into the Campea classroom, we did the breakdown of the numbers. Losing $100 million was not something I was going to do. There is also no way in holy hell this thing is $75 million in the profit already. Like, that's just a fairy tale. But I believe the truth is somewhere in between. Again, you know, the math that we often use about where does a movie break even, we say this is a general guideline. Every movie is unique. There's going to be exceptional circumstances here and there, but somewhere between $400 and $450 million, probably closer to 450, but Warner Brothers is saying 400. That is probably what Warner Brothers said to Variety, I believe is probably a more accurate number, which means that, hey, maybe Black Adam does break even. But either way, this is by far less than what they were not only hoping for, it is far less than what they were expecting when they were putting together a Dwayne Johnson-led superhero movie. Of course it is. Dwayne Johnson is the most electrifying movie star in the world. The most electrifying, I can't remember the exact saying he says, but, you know, and he has the biggest social media following. Nobody works harder than he does.
No.
He's going to push his movies and all that kind of stuff. One of the reasons he's my second favorite movie star in the world. So there's a he said, she said thing going on here. I believe the truth lies somewhere a little bit in between. But either way, the bottom line is this movie did not make the money, near the money that they were not just hoping it would make, but actually believing it would make. But Rob, what I've said before, I still stand by. I said this on yesterday's show. I said, whatever the numbers end up being, I still believe that enough people like me had enough fun with this movie that if they do a sequel, and that may be in doubt, as we'll talk about a little bit later in today's show.
Oh, yeah.
But just in theory, were they to do a sequel, I believe the groundwork has been laid that the sequel would make not significantly more money, but noticeably more money than this one did. Now that you're building upon the fan reception of the first one, now there's greater character recognizability amongst the pop culture, all that kind of stuff. So to me, the movie was still a win. Where the truth about where it falls financially, it's probably somewhere in between. Rob, you had a chance to look at all this stuff. What's your take on it?
Well, I mean, clearly the movie's a disappointment, and it's a disappointment because it wasn't that good. You know, it's a simple, but in terms of box office, people have to remember that whatever a movie makes, that money, the studio sees maybe half of it. So it's the studios might get 200 million back. Now, how much did the movie cost? I mean, it's really, we don't actually have the budget in front of us, but in terms of the costs, the marketing, and then people always forget to include studio overhead and things like that. But there's money that has been spent and money that you're getting back, and it didn't get a China release, which I'm sure was kind of a blow, but they probably should have known that because it deals with sorcery a little bit and the supernatural. But it's not a disaster. And when Dwayne Johnson,
far from it.
Yeah. And when Dwayne Johnson talks about Captain America 1, the thing with Captain America 1 was Captain America 1 did not cost what Black Adam cost.
Yeah, and it came out, the first Captain America movie, like I kind of roll my eyes when I hear people trying to excuse today's comic book movies shortcomings with those original, because remember, when Captain America, the First Avenger came out, comic book movies were not the de facto most powerful things in the box office. No. It was movies like Captain America, the First Avenger, and others like it that kind of paved the way. The fact is, today we are in an era where comic book movies are the most powerful forces in the box office.
And if you look, Captain America's box office, I think, was the least of Iron Man and Thor. I mean, it didn't make that much.
I think it was like 370
worldwide,
right around where Black Adam is right now.
Yeah, something like that. But it cost like 125 or something. It was not as expensive as the movies are today because it was all still new. You know, they didn't know if it was going to work, and this was the movie that led directly into the Avenger.
By the way, I think this movie that Jonathan's got, I think that's the third most underrated comic book film of all time. Obviously, I think it's Man of Steel #1, Thor, the first Thor movie #2, and I think First Avenger is the third most underappreciated comic book movie of all time.
And that uniform's great.
Oh, it is great.
I think that that's something that needs to be, people need to remember that. That was a different time. That was a decade ago. It was more than a decade ago.
All right, guys. Question is for you. What do you think about this? We got the major trades now doing he said, she said, one saying, no, it actually lost all this money. One saying, no, it actually made all this money. I personally think the numbers suggest that it's somewhere in between.
And also, I think everyone has to agree that it was disappointing.
89% audience rating.
Right, but in terms of box office.
Yeah, in box, absolutely. Everybody will acknowledge it was a disappointing result. So, guys, question is for you. Where do you see this? Or does it even matter? Listen, when you're talking about whether it made 10 or lost 10, it's still in that same thing. But I don't know. What do you guys make of all this? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Raycon. Guys, the holiday season is upon us, so in the spirit of giving, allow me to give you my recommendation. Premium audio products from Raycon. Raycon's wireless earbuds, headphones, and speakers offer premium sound. Anyone you gift them to will find a use for them right away. And as the person doing the gift giving, you're going to love the fact that they start at half the price of other premium audio brands. You guys know I've been using my Raycons for a long time. Every morning I get up and get on my treadmill, and I love using the Raycons because they're comfortable, they fit perfectly, and most importantly, they sound great. You can find Raycon in stores now like Kohl's or Walmart, but let me tell you right now, you're always going to get the best deal at buyraycon.com/Campea. The Raycon website also offers free shipping, free returns, and buy now, pay later options, plus a 30-day happiness guarantee. So guys, right now go to buyraycon.com/Campea to get 15% off site-wide with the code HOLIDAY, plus free shipping. That's code HOLIDAY at buyraycon.com/Campea for 15% off your Raycon purchase. buyraycon.com/Campea.